And so I guess it makes sense for me to stick with the point that I was actually starting to talk about when it came to the fact that when I talked about the FaZe versus Mouseport series, and then I will move on to FaZe Clan, and they actually um, had a good showing until the series against Mousesports, or against the let's just say second half of the series against Mousesports. They had their problems against Heroic, so they had actually like 8-14 or 9-14 scoreline against them. Then had to turn it around, then had to get into overtime, and then actually then were able to beat Heroic in the end. Were able to win that. Then when they were able to win their winners match against Optic pretty convincingly without any problems whatsoever. Um, where they had Nico, who let me just quickly do the math. In 42 rounds, he had 54 kills, had a 2.505 rating, which is insane throughout the whole series, the whole best of three. He just went off. He just took the game by the scruff of the neck, and was able to do that, to take the team into the quarterfinals, almost single-handedly. And he did a really good job doing that. He actually, by doing that, is the highest rated player of the tournament, but with the caveat that he only played 6 maps, of course, because they went out in the quarterfinal, and I actually talked about that before. And that's a problem. That's a problem that just keeps on showing up for FaZe. It's insane that I still think that this is crazy. I actually mentioned IM Sydney before, and where they were able to beat Astralis, and I still hope this is the right tournament that I'm talking about. But I can actually look that up right here, and it was IM Sydney in the beginning of May. I just could have looked that up with one click, but I just did that now, and it was IM Sydney where I talked about this, where they beat Astralis 3-0, and they actually looked like nothing could stop them at that point, because they, and I argued that back then as well, and I think this still holds. They did that well, and I think that one of the points, one of the contributing factors to their performance back then was that they were the underdogs in that series. They had other problems with being the runner-up of a tournament, where they weren't able to get it done. And I think this is also this actually maybe moves into the into this conversation quite nicely. Of course, we had the E-League major at the beginning of the year. We had IM Oakland, where they lost against NIP in the finals. We had the IM World Championship, where they lost against Fnatic in the finals, which they arguably shouldn't have done. So they were both times against NIP and against Fnatic. They were obviously the favorites to win, and they didn't. So again, when they went against Astralis, who were starting to become the best team in the world, had actually won DreamHack Masters Marseille before that, a few weeks before that. They lost against FaZe, like I said, 3-0, and FaZe was able to dominate them. And like I said, I actually talked about two things, and I actually mentioned both of them in this podcast already. I think that Astralis, of course, beats FaZe more often than FaZe beats Astralis. I actually made that point back in May as well. And FaZe desperately needs a sports psychologist. I think that they have a problem with these types of scenarios, and I think it's glaring that this hasn't been dealt with before, until now at least. I don't think that this is something that can actually be fixed that easily. So I don't want to be naive here and say, okay, there's a certain blueprint out here. You should do this, and by doing that, okay, every problem gets solved. It's not that easy. Of course, it never is, especially when you talk about mental stuff, or this mental aspects of the game. But this is still something that should at least be addressed, and I don't think this is being addressed. I think that when I from the things that I read and I heard when I hear them speak and I hear them talk about this, and maybe these questions come up once or twice here and there, but it's always when I read about Nico, and I have the utmost respect for Nico. I think he's one of the best players in the world. When I read about him tilting, or when I hear about the players talking about tilting, I don't really see that they address this, at least to the outside world, as a problem. I think this always gets played down, and the talk is always about, of course we are frustrated, but this doesn't really affect our game, and we are not really tilting, and this doesn't really happen. But there's certainly something that happens there, because you don't perform like that when you don't have a problem with that. So when you are in a series and everything goes so well, when you come fresh out of a best of 3 where you only gave up 10 maps, and you get into the next onto the next map, onto the map pick of their opponents, and you beat them by only conceding 1 round. I think I said 10 maps. I meant obviously 10 rounds. Then when you are secure in your performance, and you I don't know, you are able to take a 10-5 half of the opponents way more easily than actually FaZe are able to do that. I don't know what happens there. I can't see it. I can't really. Maybe I should take a more specific look at what happens there from an inside and from a feelings perspective, from watching it from the outside. But I don't really know what's happening there. And the problem is, and maybe this gets into the last point. This is not only a tournament where they just didn't win the tournament. It was the last chance for them to actually make the Inter Grand Slam happen with the setup that they had right now, because they won ESL 1 New York 2017. Of course, they won IM Sydney, like I mentioned, and they won ASL 1 Belo Horizonte. And this was actually the last tournament that would have been the 4th tournament in that year, in that circuit, where all these 4 wins would have counted. Now the next tournament is ESL 1 New York, and so their win from 2017, they all can only defend the win from the 2017 tournament. So they will actually stick with 3 tournaments there, and then they will have to win another one in order to get the Inter Grand Slam title, or the prize money. So if they had won that, they looked to be in a great position until they didn't anymore. At least to move on from the quarterfinals. What would have happened after that? Of course, no one will know. Maybe they would have lost to North as well, or in the end they wouldn't have been able to beat Astralis. But doesn't really make sense for me. But this, they weren't able to do that. That was actually my point, and this maybe speaks to it a little bit more, because they felt more pressure even to win that tournament, because of all of this, all of these circumstances and all of that. I'm not sure. I don't know, and I will not make a guess what is actually happening there in detail, because I don't know. Maybe the return of Olaf Meister makes them actually feel that they now need to perform even better than they did with Chromen or with Exist, because they seem to value Olaf Meister a lot, and I think it makes sense that they do that. But maybe this puts in a little bit more pressure. Every time FaZe had a legitimate reason not to perform well, they did perform well, and all the time that they were primed to win, and they were primed to performed better than the times that they weren't performing well, they aren't really able to do that. And in the beginning of the year, this was the case, of course, with grand finals. Like I said, like I mentioned the tournaments before, here we had IEM Oakland against NIP. We actually had then the ESL Pro League finals of season 6, where they lost the finals against SK, formerly SK, of course now MIBR. And then they lost IM Katowice against Fnatic. These were 3 grand finals that would have counted if they had won. That would have counted towards the Intel Grand Slam. Of course, the major came between that, so this wouldn't have been a problem here anymore if they were able to win one of those. Yeah, actually one of those, because Belo Horizonte would have then been the fourth tournament, and therefore they would have been able to get the Inter Grand Slam. But they weren't able to do that, and I think it's time for the team to take that seriously. Maybe they are, and maybe they are not just not communicating it. But yeah, I think that this is an important thing to talk about, and I think this cannot be, accredited to something else. This is a problem that needs to be addressed, and I think that the team, and I'm pretty sure that the organization will be able to do that. The players and the management, of course, would just have to agree on that being a priority. I think that the sports psychologist is something, the benefits that someone like that can bring to the team are perfectly presented by teams like Astralis and North, who have those persons in their staff. And yeah, I think that it makes sense for them to perform the way that they do now, in order, or because of the fact that they are doing that. And I think this is it's long proven that this has a good track record if you have a good person to do that with you. And this is something that can only be recommended to them to maybe at least discuss, or maybe make sure that this gets the wheels get moving on that topic.